to all the listeners. Welcome to the fifth episode of Airworthy Talks by Udan Aviation Academy. I'm your host, Subhashish Modak. Today, we have got the very young and accomplished Miss Saloni Verma with us. Saloni has a bachelor's in architecture from IIT Roorkee, and she is currently working in the capacity of an airport architect with the very famous Mumbai International Airport. Now, this podcast is all about peeking into the world of airport architecture with Saloni, and let's have a very good podcast with you. Good evening, Saloni. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, good evening, Subhashish. Thank you for having me here today. I'm doing great, and it's an honor. I feel really good being a part of this talk today, and looking forward to an amazing time and amazing talk.
Absolutely right, Saloni. When we think about aviation industry, there are a lot of unsung hero in this industry. When people think about aviation, it's the pilots and cabin crew who take up the entire glamour of the industry. But here we have people like you who are working behind the scenes and creating this beautiful architectural marvel so that people can have a seamless journey. So I just wanted to know what is your journey in the airport architecture has been so far? What has developed that passion in you to take up airport architecture?
Okay. So, first of all, I never thought that I'll be in this field before when I was doing my bachelor's from IIT Roorkee. So at that point of time, architecture was taught in a way that we were only talking about mixed-use buildings, hospitality projects, and small-scale projects, to be honest, because at that level, for an undergraduate to do something in aviation and airport, the intricacies that are involved was like way beyond reach. So basically, I would say my journey started back in 2016 when I decided to take Navi Mumbai International Airport as my thesis project. So, back then we were not taught that much in the details of it about the airport systems. And also because, now we see that back in like what 5 years back there wasn't too much of interaction through LinkedIn or through different platforms, so the possibility of interacting with the minted experts of the industry was very limited. It was minimal. So thankfully there were a few good people in my network who I could reach out to, and they helped me understand airport architecture. And then of course you have to be very well determined, and then you have to take that extra mile to extract as much as possible.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how I started knowing airport designing, aviation as a sector. And in fact, I would tell you, in my family itself, we don't know anyone who's doing architecture. Forget airport architecture for that matter. So, so it started then. And then after I finished my thesis, I realized that I had that zeal to keep continuing into aviation industry. So I applied for an internship. So I worked for almost 2-3 months on Shiri International Airport, which is only like it was under Airport Authority of India back then. So we were working on the airside development. Then later on I joined an MNC in Pune. So we worked on the King Khalid International Airport. It was Riyadh based, and they were basically doing the renovation, the redevelopment of the project. Another terminal was coming up. Then again, my heart was stuck to this project, Navi Mumbai, because I had done my thesis. It was like my baby. So I applied and I sailed through it very easily to the interview. And now, when I started working on Navi Mumbai, so there was like we interacted with some of the international firms like Zaha Hadid Architects, Arup, and a lot of different partners who were working for signage and wayfinding, advertisement, and so much more. So that's how Navi Mumbai came into picture. And now presently I'm working on 6 international airports like Ahmedabad, Lucknow, Bangalore International, and so on, so forth. So the journey has been really nice and exciting, and thankfully by God's grace, I've been getting really good opportunities.
Absolutely right. I mean, you talked about so many airports, which we just imagine as an audience that how beautiful it is by the looks of it. You talked about, the King Khalid International Airport, and then you about the upcoming Navi Mumbai International Airport. Obviously, the videos about how beautiful the Navi Mumbai International Airport going to be is sort of floating across the YouTube. I also wanted to know, and this is the question which I sometimes get from people out there in the aviation industry, that when we think about architecture, people feel that it's a one-time thing. You design something, you make it, and then you forget it. But what is the day in the life of a Saloni Verma is like? What is the
Mhm.
day in life of an airport architect?
Okay. So, it comes into packages. So, at different levels, different stages, we have to deal accordingly as per the stage demands. So, for example, I'll initiate by the first stage, that is the concept stage. So, whenever an airport comes into picture, so first of all, you need to understand the background of it. Like an airport, it consists of three components: land side, air side, and the terminal, which is being the interface between the two, the land side and the air side, which is
Right.
basically the integral part. But again, since it is catering to so many different authorities, stakeholders, and passengers, of course, which is like the focal point of revenue generation and the main purpose why the airports are successful today. So it's nothing but a transportation hub, right? But it
Right.
is addressing to the passengers. So to address those needs, and from first level to another level, understanding the planning numbers. For example, you know that this is a particular airport. The first, the underlining is the master planning. So once you know the airport premise, what is the area going to be and what is the site condition, and then further, understanding how the expansion, the future
Hmm.
expandability is envisioned, the forecasting. And then based on all these parameters, you have to design and plan solutions so as to yield a substantially great product which can deliver something which is economically as well as for an overall growth very feasible and worthwhile. So this is on a peripheral note. I would just say that these are the basic components that we look into. But this is not just enough. Now we have different planning numbers that we need to understand, and there are so many consultants and different authorities that need to get
Hmm.
consultation and get it approved, and only after that you can design that particular facilitation. Then of course, as I mentioned, that there are different disciplines involved. There are so many airport systems, BHS, and other systems that, and as an architect, it is very difficult to understand and comprehend. So therefore, to sit with them, so we have like a round table conference kind of a thing, wherein we
Hmm.
are all sitting together and zooming into the BIM model and understanding where the clashes are happening. For example, if my
Okay.
architectural wall and the roof is coming, then there might be some instances where the structural member is also intersecting or getting into my main space where the aesthetics are getting killed, or
Yeah.
maybe MEP. So that way the coordination comes into play, and it plays a vital role in making your airport just seamless. And what we see as the last impression, like what you said, that it is that we build it and then we forget it. It's never like that. It's a never
Right.
ending process. Even after getting it built, we have to still look into the as built drawings and understand where how it has changed, because during when we are doing a table work and then when it is getting constructed, then also we realize that paperwork might differ when it comes to practicality. So
Hmm.
I think that is how we as an architect work on a day-to-day basis.
Wow, that's really fascinating, because when it's just the common people's perception. I'm telling you, it's like an architect with a fresh sheet of paper and just brainstorming on ideas and ideas. But there is more to it. You have to sit with teams. You have to make sure that different operational requirements are met, and at the same time, there is a lot of regulatory hurdles which are to be overcome as well. Um, but how an airport architecture is different from that of let's say a general a landscape or a building. What are some of the key consideration which an airport has in terms of its architectural design, which your standard brick and wall designs don't have, or your standard buildings don't have? How that is different?
Uh, Honestly, I would say that aviation or airport designing is basically the subset of what you are saying.
Okay.
It has got to do everything with whatever you mentioned, all the key consideration that you undertake before designing a hotel maybe, or a hospital, or maybe a bar, or anything whatsoever, whatever you are planning. For that, the groundwork that you're going to do, the same thing has to be applied here as well as the initial steps. Then comes into play the key consideration. There are so many authorities, because it's something that has to relate directly to the security. A lot of security concerns. We know that the airports are highly secure buildings. That is the main key reasons why we have so many, restrictions and so many things that we need to, ponder upon before designing or getting onto the paper. So some of the key consideration, as I already mentioned, that the planning has got to do a lot with that. Then, of course, right now we are in the world where things are very volatile. So I'm sure you would have heard
Exactly.
of VUCA world. So
Yeah.
things are volatile, uncertain, and it's continuously changing. But what
Exactly.
is not changing is that the airports are very secure and they have to maintain that sanctity of the airport premises. So therefore, we need to have that clear vision and agility within our buildings. How can this be achieved? So for that matter, there are certain reforms also. We follow a lot of IATA guidelines, ADRM, and ACI also keeps on running a lot of campaigns and what should I say? Different There are different initiatives run by them through which, airport operators get to know what is actually required and how to cope up to match those standards. So
Right.
but all in all, our first key consideration is basically passenger experience. The
Okay.
customers, all the different consumers, be it your airline companies, your different authorities, or maybe there are so many authorities for that matter, the government, immigration, customs, CISF. So,
Right.
I have also worked upon detailed planning of stakeholder offices. Like when I was
Okay.
initially working on Mumbai International Airport, so we have 4 5 different authorities that basically regulate the security and circulation within the airport processing units. So for that, you need to get all these plans firmed up, the areas, what kind of workforce they'll be requiring, how many work desks, workstations, and offices, what kind of accessibility, visibility into the immigration area they require. So first of all, you design that, but then you have to go for consultation. So these are the first, some of the few consideration, and also along with that there is retail therapy, because
Right.
when you talk about an airport, it's not just that just filling in with so much amazing intangible beauty and everything, but not getting anything out of it. So of course, one is aero generation, value generation, and another is of course
The
non-aero
non-aero.
generation, which
Right.
is just indispensable in today's time, and also because it adds to the comfort level of the passenger. So all in all, these are some of the key consideration along with airport systems and intricate detailing.
Absolutely right. And you mentioned the point of volatility, and I just wanted to know more on that. When we think about architecture, architecture is all about having data from the past, designing for the present, and for a future which is essentially unknown. And the same goes with airport architecture, whereby you planned an airport keeping in mind that the airport will hit 50 million passengers per annum capacity by, let's say, the year 2025. And all of a sudden, volatility like pandemic hits. How, as an architect, or how, as an airport as a firm, cope up with such hiccups? Does it slow down the entire construction process or your architectural process in as a person?
Of course, it does. So initially, when the pandemic had its unprecedented effect on the entire industry, not just aviation but other industries as well, we did come to the standstill. Like we couldn't really, and nobody knew how to cope up with it. But then
Right.
of course, the government had announced a lockdown, and there were so many other repercussions because of it. But in the meanwhile, we as an airport operator got the chance to reiterate the entire process, how we are going about it. Now this pandemic is not going to be there forever, so bringing that change invariably into the system is just, it doesn't make much sense, I believe. But of course, to be future ready, like for such pandemics to happen, we should have provision in the existing systems in a way that we can cater to that need. So for example, in the due to COVID-19, we had to maintain social distancing.
Right.
But in today's times, like previous times, I would say, we used to have a lot of queuing spaces. Like people were always in the queues, and there wasn't enough space, right?
Right.
And it
Yeah.
was always a crowded space. But the situation demanded something which requires a lot of social distancing, and for that, we need to have that much of space also. And
Right.
also workforce which can cater to, because the one after the other counter cannot be operated again, because they also
Absolutely.
between the staff need to have this distancing. So therefore we introduced foot markers. We introduces more number of self check-in kiosks. We introduced some test checking booths on the
Right.
forecourt area, so that only the uninfected or maybe the healthy human body can enter into the airport premise without infecting the entire space out there. So these are some of the steps that we had to quickly think over, and
Yeah.
in within no time, and also cost effective, because it's not going to be long term. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, rightly said, Saloni. The show must go on. I mean, airports are such things which you cannot just, close overnight. It are pieces of vital infrastructure for any country. Um, when you think about aviation industry, one of the important thing about our industry is the regulatory framework which our industry plays into. We have got players like IATA and ACI which directly come into equation when we think about an airport. So in your person or in your role as an architect, how are you challenged with this regulatory concepts which are provided by IATA and ACI from the point of view of standardization or from the point of view of smooth passenger flow? How do you cope up with such regulations?
Um, so basically, when you say IATA standards, and of course, when we talk about ACI, it's basically most of the times it's about ranking.
Right.
So not really, but yes, that's how we that's how we start thinking when we think about ACI. So the level of service or the different standards that are to relate with IATA, it's basically to check the airport performance, how effectively an airport is performing in times of underutilization, optimum utilization, and also overutilization of the facilities. So it has got to do with the traffic services. So for example, your airport, how crowded it is in terms of flow, density, and queuing for that matter. These are some of the key factors. Now, as an architect, how we come into picture is during the planning stage, when we are when I say planning means that we are coming with the numbers, the capacity numbers. So for example, when we say we have these many check-in counters, so these are actually calculated by planners. So
Right.
this is basically not an architect's role but a planner's role, because they have deep down dug into the framework of how these numbers are calculated. Frank, fortunately, I got the opportunity to work on it. It's quite exciting, and also for people who are listening to it, I would really, tell them, for the keen acumens who are actually interested into aviation, planning is very important. So
Right.
you see how it comes into helping the vitality of the airport is that once you know the standards from the LOS are basically level of service, which
Service.
ranges from A to F, and within this band of six gradations, like six ranking lines, A is the best out of it, and F being the worst.
First.
And in this, it's basically optimization only. So you cannot, just in order to achieve a level of service A, you won't forget about cost. You
Right.
cannot provide a lot of facilities or counters, because it's going to be wasted. It's,
True.
if it is not effectively used, it's of no use. Putting in so much of money and not getting anything out of it is just, you know not that smart decision for any country. So
Right.
therefore, when we design these counters, so we figure it out that how many passengers are coming during a peak day, for example, peak hour, how many passengers are going to be occupying that particular space, and how many passengers are going to do the conventional check-in, and how many people are coming doing there, because we are now tech savvy. The millennials, they like to, they do their check-in way before reaching our airport. And in fact,
Absolutely.
also because now that we have the facility to get our bags also dropped without getting into the terminal area, so that is also an add-on service. So therefore, these different aspects, as in from the point where the passenger is getting onto the airport terminal, like the forecourt, and until the time he is boarding the aircraft, we are supposed to take care of the entire journey, and how
Right.
many hurdles and how many times he has to wait into the queuing area, because also that's also add on to their experience.
True.
So these are some of the parameters that, as an architect, we have to consider, as a planner we have to consider, so as to provide that smooth and seamless journey to the passenger.
Right, absolutely right. And certainly these guidelines, they help us to take smart decisions at the same time
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I think about airport journeys, and when you think about airport journeys back in the 90s, as a kid, obviously we just remember the flashes of it, but back in those days, if I remember airport journey, it was quite chaotic. Okay. And now we live in an era where airports are not just places where people go and catch their flight. It is actually more than that. It is spaces of retail, spaces to relax. And you see more and more airports speak about volumes in the city where they serve. So, how, as an airport architect, do you showcase that? Or how, as an airport architect, do you actually connect the aesthetics to the emotional levels of passengers who are doing their travel journeys?
Well, basically, I would say that airports are like the gateways. For a new passenger, for example, if you're a transiting passenger, you're getting into that space and you're getting to know about the culture, about the difference when it is compared to any other terminal, any other airport. So it is also a way to, showcase that level of connect to your passenger. So I think just by showing the functional aspect, the performance of your airport is not, it's absolutely just not enough. We need to think about the passenger experience and their emotional quotient also matching to the levels of your airport as well. So, I right now I want to know about you. What kind of a passenger you are? Like whenever you're traveling, whether you are a leisure traveler, you travel only related to work, or how do you travel? What kind of traveling you like? I just want to know about what is your take on it.
I mean, it's totally depending upon situation. So when I obviously work for travel or work for travel, actually, I have got a different avatar at that point of time. I'm more sort of, making sure that, every seconds counts. So I will arrive the airport as late as possible so that I get more time to work at my office and everything, and just rush at the very end. But let's say when I'm on holiday, it is totally a different scenario. I wanted to make the most use of my credit card lounge access. So I'll make sure I reach, 2 to 3 hours early at the airport, make sure I booze up myself and have a very good sleep in the flight. Um, but in both, avatars of journey, uh, you need elements in the airport which will support you. You need the lounge during your leisure time, whereas the same time while I'm on a work, I would definitely look for a coffee shop which would keep me alive while I've reached my destination as well. So yeah, that is the kind of traveler I am. Depending upon the situation, I mask myself or have different attributes to how I travel. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. So it's basically you are making us earn money as well, and it is helping you serve your emotional quotient, which is interesting, very nice. But to tell you about me, I would say that I am someone who love traveling, and I love collecting souvenirs, and I love sketching. So of course, taking pictures and creating those onto the paper is something that I really fancy, and I love doing it. So of course, whenever I travel and whenever I see an airport with such intricate details and beautification, and it also matches my emotional quotient, then of course it is delighting. And on other days when I'm not like traveling for a holiday or on a vacation or something, I'm just traveling because I have to go back home. Because I live in Rishikesh, like my native's in Rishikesh. So if I have to just catch the flight so as to reach my hometown, then I'm generally like last minute kind of a person who's always rushing to the airport and gasping and just catching a breath and just you know all the time anxious about
Right.
how it is going to end, and I hope I don't miss my flight. It is apparently I have read a lot of times, because I've been working on signage and wayfinding quite into detail. So I understand that when we do the when we get into the detailings of airport systems, for example, signage and wayfinding for a first-time traveler who doesn't know how the process works, who doesn't know how to move, how to maneuver himself, and how don't he doesn't know that what this particular process is for, they'll be always anxious. You have to understand
True.
that. And
True.
you can't deny that there'll be out of 100, maybe 40% at the minimum, 40% passenger, or maybe 10% if you consider. 10% of the passengers will be the first time travelers. They
Travelers.
might
Yeah.
not be tech savvy as well. They might be tech phobic. They don't know how to operate their phone also. So for that matter, to maintain that kind of emotional connect and help them navigate themselves through the airport is very important. So we have to understand each and every persona. For example, a first time traveler, for a VIP passenger for that matter, is very different. Of course, they know everything and they don't want unnecessary hindrances in
Right.
their way. Your unnecessary people are also pushing them, and it will be such a
Absolutely. Yes.
disgusting experience for a VIP passenger or first time premium passengers. They want to have a seamless flow wherein it's not too crowded, and also there is someone who's escorting them and getting things done for them. So accordingly, when we talk about different personas of different travelers, we have to understand their emotional connection, their emotional values, also how they'll be approaching towards each and every touch point.
Right.
And in the similar way, there might be passengers who have traveled multiple times, and they're just regular passengers who are flying. So for that, also to help them have that comfort level with the airport, environment, the entire ambience has to support and amplify their vibe. I feel that we as millennials, we really look forward to the vibe check. It has to be something that gives us
Absolutely.
that kind of vibe that, yeah, wow, what an amazing environment we are sitting in, and experiencing it is very important. So I think this is how we connect. And CSMI has done an amazing job. I was not a part of that project when it was being built and everything, but of course, throughout my thesis, it has inspired me a lot to do better, get better, and to Jai He is one of those programs that has won a lot of trophies, accolades because of its uniqueness, because it's, spreading the Indian culture, the artifacts, history, and also enlightening our foreign crowd who's, coming to the India for the first time. So I think it's very, very important to connect
Right.
with the passengers well.
Absolutely right. And kudos to CSIMA. I remember now, since while we are having this discussion, that in the year 2019, CSIMA won the Best Skytrix Award for the best customer experience.
Yes.
And a part of customer experience is not only the architecture, but people who work at the airport as well. Right from check-in till at the boarding areas to people in the security, everyone is having that emotional connect with the passenger while they are traveling. And airports can be sometimes meticulously, they have longer walking distances, but with these elements they bring in that soothness to the journey itself is quite refreshing.
Yeah.
Right. So kudos to CSIMA. Also, one thing which is now getting much and much more relevant in today's day of climate change and all the thing which is happening with the environment is the concept of sustainability. And how does you as an architect embrace that concept of sustainability, that eco-friendliness into your architectural experience while designing this marvelous airports?
You know, as an architect, of course, we are aware, we are taught also. Such subjects are being taught in different universities these days, part of the curriculum. But the thing which makes it more profound and amazing is that even the today's travelers, they are also quite aware.
Right.
And that also adds on another, I won't say pressure, but also motivates the airport operators to greenify their buildings, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
So that is another level of motivation which is leading them towards taking such measures, which actually makes them take lead accreditations or green ratings of different ranking for that matter. But this also affects the overall life cycle of your project. So, in this, I would say that simple measures that we undertake is when we were working on Navi Mumbai. So we had different consultants all together who were looking into the sustainability aspect of the entire project. Now, this obviously started with the environmental impact assessment reports
True.
that was done by the government. So they first of all analyze the entire topography, the site conditions, and what all, how it is going to impact the mangroves all in
Hmm.
all,
Hmm.
and other natural factors, natural resources that are going to be disrupted
Right.
because of this particular project to coming on the site. And there were existing habilitation also. There were some villages, you must be aware
Hmm.
of it, that even
Hmm.
today, till date, it hasn't been eradicated. The problem still sustains. So,
Right.
these are some of the key factors that are undertaken for greenfield airports.
Hmm.
Because in greenfield airports, we have that flexibility to understand the
Absolutely.
site completely. And then after that, once you have decided that this is going to be the site, and then when it comes to the final application of sustainability, these are some of the factors. Then there are a lot of other factors that the
Right.
sustainable experts are aware of. But once it comes to the application, we can, instead of going for some uh, uh, plastic base or some modified materials, we can always go for recycled or
Hmm.
natural resources which doesn't pollute the environment. Then you can use energy efficient surfaces and substances, and
Hmm.
of course systems that define sustainability. So, to just exemplify what I'm trying to say is, for example, we were working on facade systems
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
Navi Mumbai. Now, in that, there are different options. You can go for double glazed units. You can go with isolated glazed units, DGUs, IGUs, and there are different systems for that matter. And these systems have different U values, the thermal
Hmm.
resistivity and thermal performances that impact the facade. Now,
True.
these systems, when you go for systems that are actually insulating the external heat and cutting that heat getting into the environment inside,
Hmm.
you are actually regulating your macroclimate within the terminal, which
Right.
means that when a lot of external heat is not entering into the building, you don't need to put extra
Air
load on your
conditioning.
HVAC.
Yeah.
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 So that is one of the ways you are actually adding on to that sustainability factor. Then you can use motion sensors, light sensors. So you can use what should I say, skylights and facades in a way that, during the daytime at least, you don't need to load your electrical
Hmm.
loads.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can only rely upon the natural lighting,
Yeah.
and that can help in carbon neutrality at least as much as possible. Then you have waterless fittings. For
Hmm.
example, these days, of course, restrooms are very much used in the airports,
Right.
and you have different types of passengers you have to
Hmm.
deal with. You
Right.
never know
Yeah.
how they are going to understand that emotional uh, connect from different angles, different perspectives. You may be an environmentalist, you may be someone advocating sustainability, but others may not. So for that, you're just bringing in waterless, you know, water efficient fittings, or maybe waterless urinals that are, at least at the minimum, you are wasting these natural resources. So I think all in all, there are so many airports also who are using solar energy, wind energy, and water energy in some way or the other, so as to read that, to reduce the carbon emission. So I think these are some of the ways, and how you can cope up with the extra,
Sustainability.
yeah, sustainability and extra pressure that you're putting on Mother Earth. You can just,
Yeah.
neutralize it as much as possible.
Absolutely right, Saloni. I mean, it's very fascinating to hear about the different facets you are talking about, right? From architecture to sustainability to emotional quotient with the passenger. And when I speak with students, they are kind of lost as to, you know, what to do with their careers, especially in aviation, which demands you to be a specialist to reach a particular cadre in their respective life. And I'm sure there will be more Salonis like you who want to become, airport architects. What is your golden advice for them? What all things they should study from now or look into now so that they could end up where you are today?
I think the biggest takeaway from my journey, and what I would advise to these budding professionals who will be entering into the industry, because aviation is still, growing,
Hmm.
especially in India. So I think for you, for these younger people, enthusiasts who wants to learn more, it's very important to learn from the industry, the experts for the matter. Of course, there are a lot of books available. There are a lot of journals, newsletters, and we have this different platforms where you can go participate, compete, and through that you can get a lot of exposure, and you can learn through different experiences from these different people. But what matters the most is the practical application of these things. So when I compare my present knowledge bank with back when I was writing my thesis, I think I find it very kiddish. Of course, it's because at that stage I didn't know how it
Yeah.
works. So of course, getting to learn from, you have to first of all set a benchmark that you have to reach here, or this is the level of understanding you need to have when it comes to airport aviation projects. And then with that, you have to apply it also and learn from their mistakes. So I would definitely suggest that whoever is interested, they can come and talk to me for their thesis or whatever. And if they know someone in their close proximity, vicinity, and even if they don't know, I think today's world, the generation has to be, very dynamic. They have to be proactive. They have to approach the
Right.
audience, and if at all they don't welcome them, it's okay. No matter, it is not of any,
Yeah.
they should feel fine, because there are other people out there who will be ready to help you. I believe in giving back. Other people also may feel the same, so
Yeah.
you can get different experiences all together, and it definitely helps a lot, because it has helped me a lot. So that
Absolutely.
is one. You get in touch with the industry experts, then you read a lot, you try to understand it, the practicality of it, and then after learning it, you have to practice it as well. So if at all you're trying a math problem, and then you couldn't solve a problem, you see the solution, and if you don't try it again by yourself, you will never learn the concept behind it. So when you understand the airport functionalities, you learn different things. You have to write it on paper or do something that is actually tangible to the outside world. And just be enthusiastic, just be hungry to learn more. I think that's
Right.
how you climb the ladder faster. Yeah, that
Absolutely
would be my
right. And
takeaway.
absolutely right. And one thing which is very common, which I find people who are currently working in aviation industry is the passion which they have. It's a field which I believe that there is no divorce. Once you're married to aviation, you are married for your life. So, and such is the passion the students need to incur. Despite the industry comes up with a lot of challenges like pandemic and every other hiccup which exists out there, it's all about we being much more resilient towards it. And certainly
Absolutely.
from your word today, I definitely take one thing that home. It's all about knowing more. It's all about being much more open to understand new things, connect with people, use platforms like LinkedIn, and just increase your knowledge band about the aviation industry. Right,
Yeah.
Saloni, it was a very wonderful talk so far, but let's fire it up a bit. Okay, let's do what we call here in Udan is the rapid fire round, and let me put you through certain questions at pace, and let's see what is the best you like out of all I ask you.
Okay.
So, my first question to you is, and this is an hypothetical question. According to you, which airport terminal design will be better? Is it the already existing T2, or is it the upcoming Navi Mumbai International Airport project which you will be working on? Which terminal building do you feel will charm up the audience most?
100% Navi Mumbai International Airport. We are working on it day and night, and it's going to be the futuristic building that anybody is going to see. So yes, Navi Mumbai.
There you go. One for Navi Mumbai, right? Um, See, there are a lot of terminal designs which float across, across the airport. So I just wanted to ask, what is your favorite terminal design? Is it the satellite terminal design, or is it the, linear terminal design? What is that you like the most?
I'd say that I like linear better, and linear with the centralized retail and everything, because of course I love shopping. So yes.
Which brings me on to the next question. Your best place to chill out at an airport. Is it the airport lounge or is it the airport duty free?
Airport duty free.
It's kind of understood. What is that you like to more? You like to buy more in a duty free shop? Is it a fragrance? Is it a quick bite of a chocolate? What is that you like the most?
I love fragrances and I love gifts also.
Right. One of the major aspects of a passenger journey is the passenger check-in and the passenger security. And which aspect annoys you the most?
The security aspect.
Has to be, has to be.
It
Right.
is always the overcrowding and too many checkpoints at the security that is most annoying. And I'm sure you as a passenger also hate it the most.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's- and it varies from airport to airport.
Yeah.
At certain airports, you have to put your bags right when you enter the airport. Where else at certain airports, obviously at check-in, but then at security as well. At some places, they tell to remove your shoes. They don't tell to remove your shoes. They tell to remove your belt. So yeah, all of that is there. Um, you know, the next question is again, keeping in mind the future aspect. Your air travel in the year 2025, will it happen to the already existing Mumbai airport or the Navi Mumbai International Airport? 2025
Navi Mumbai. Absolutely Navi Mumbai. Yes.
has to be. So in 4 years,
Yes.
we will be out there at Navi Mumbai Airport. Right. Okay. The next question is a bit personal. So 10 year down the line, where do Saloni see herself? Practicing architecture or teaching architecture?
I think it's going to be a combination of both, because through this platform, I learned that, I love teaching also. I love giving back what I've already acquired. So and I also love designing airports. So it has to be a combination of both.
Right. I already see that happening, with your commitment towards Sudan and with so much of dedication putting into this podcast. Thank you so much, Saloni, for your time. And it was an excellent, opportunity for us to host you. And thank you so much for your time. It was an excellent show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Subhashish and Uran team. I really had an amazing experience, and I would love to be associated with this organization and helping young minds and enthusiasts to, do better in life and help them wherever it's required, and also learn from them, because they'll be coming up with different, newer, fresher perspectives. So of course, it has to be a symbiotic relationship.
Definitely. Perfect. Thank you, Saloni. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.